Welcome, everybody. We're so happy that you're joining us for another episode about Let's Chat about aging in your community. Today, I'm really excited to have a special guest, Kari Quinn-Humphreys, who is actually a next door neighbor of ours at Chats, and her organization is Alzheimer's Society of York Region. So we've got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of great programs that the organization offers, and just some of the challenges that people in the community do face with dementia, and that caregivers have challenges with providing support to their loved ones. So a lot of things that we want to ask Kari about and get some comment on. This is, as we said before, a local program, but the issues that we deal with really cut across all provinces and across the country in terms of being either barriers or challenges to being able to age in your own community, in your own homes as long as possible. So we want to be able to have information that people can follow up with and really have a better sense of what services and programs are available to them. So, Kari, I just want to go through a little bit about your background. You've been with the Alzheimer's Society of York Region since 2023, but you were formerly with the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto, and have had sort of a history with the organization, moving in through different positions. You want to tell us a little bit about Alzheimer's Society and what its mission is, and what is it that you're trying to do as an organization?
So I'll just give you a little bit of overview of how the Alzheimer's Society works as a whole across Ontario. We have 26 chapters. So you're talking to the CEO for York Region's chapter, but everyone across Ontario has access. So anyone who's listening to this outside of York Region also has the opportunity to access services through the Alzheimer's Society. You can go to the Ontario website to find your location, or you can just Google your location in Alzheimer's Society and it would come up. Some of the core programs that we provide across Ontario is social workers to support caregivers, and education. We provide education to caregivers. We also do some recreational support, like Minds in Motion is an example where you have a person living with dementia and their caregiver where they can take part in an exercise class, either online or in person. And there's also a social aspect to that education piece as well. We have education coordinators who provide education to the community, so to the public, to caregivers, and then also to professionals who are supporting those with dementia out in the community and in hospitals, long-term care homes, community centers, that type of thing. The main crux of the work is to support the caregiver, who is to build their resilience, because the better off a person is with the more resilient and the stronger, and the tools, if there's tools provided for that caregiver, the better off that person living with dementia is as well. So it's kind of a package deal. And ultimately, our goal is to provide quality care and support to the person living with dementia. And we generally do that through the caregiver. So that's kind of a synopsis.
Yeah, as I was preparing for this episode, I was doing a little bit of research, and one of the statistics I heard is that as of this year, there's approximately 316,000 people in Ontario living with dementia, but it's expected that in another 10 years, that we may have an increase of 50%, not 5%, 50%, reaching some 475,000 individuals just in Ontario alone. What does that mean to being able to provide services to all of those people? And how do we encourage caregivers, as you said, an important equation in being able to ensure that the person with dementia is able to continue to live well at home? How do we support and make the caregivers aware of what they can be doing and should be doing early on in that journey of dementia?
So early on in that, I think the big thing would be to avoid social isolation. I think when a person is first diagnosed, or when the first signs are showing, it is really making sure that you're putting your circle of care into place. I was talking to someone about it the other day, and everyone was like, "Oh, in the early stages, it's not that difficult on the caregiver," but that's not true. It's actually really, really difficult for the caregiver in the early stages of the disease process, because they're they're supporting the individual to remain independent, and that is very draining in order to do so. There's that constant reminder, there's the constant reminders, there's the constant prompting, there's and there's that risk that's always there as you're trying to have that person remain independent. How we can be supporting them is, they need to know about us. They need to know about the services that Chats provides. They need to know the services that we provide. They need to know and get connected early, and not think, "Oh, I can do this on my own." And that brings you to the point of stigma. And us as a community, there's so much stigma around dementia and even just aging and ageism. Ensuring that we're checking in on our seniors and empowering them and respecting them and recognizing how important and valuable they are to the community is super important, and making sure that they feel safe to disclose when there is a problem, that we're going to ensure that they maintain as much control as possible over the situation and not take away their power and control at the first signs of any type of decline. I think that would be there's so much talk about stigma, and in the early stages, people are hiding it. I'll give you another example of something, is as a quick tip for those who have someone at home and they're concerned about them. Get to the doctor, make sure that it's not something that's physical going on with that individual, and that there is actually something happening. Make sure that you're putting services into place as early as possible and reaching out and making people aware. But people tend to hide it. And people are like, "Oh, that person will never wander. That person will never leave the home unescorted. They would never leave the house without me." You don't know that. Making some of the key people in your neighborhood aware that that person is struggling is really valuable. So, for instance, in my neighborhood, it's quite a condensed neighborhood, lots of people, but we don't necessarily all know each other. But we have a variety store 10 doors down, and it's run by an older couple who live above it, and they are the eyes of the entire community. And if I ever had a situation where I had someone living with me who was in the early stages, I would be quietly going and having a conversation with some of the eyes around my community, like the couple in that variety store, and saying, "Just so you know, my husband has some issues that are happening, and I just wanted to make you aware. If you ever see him out by himself and it looks a little strange, like he's in his slippers, or he looks like he doesn't quite know where he's going, or I'm not with him, can you just, here's my cell number. Can you put this somewhere?" And check in with them on every few months, and just make sure they still have your cell number.
Mm-hmm. Now, Alzheimer's Society has a great program called First Link.
Yes.
Can you describe that for us, and how would somebody get involved? What would the process be?
So the First Link is super easy, and what it is it's linking it's linking a person to our community, like our services, like our agency. And what that means is, if a doctor saw that you were starting to have some problems with your memory, or you were diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, they would ask permission of you to say, "Can I give your name and number and a little synopsis of the situation? I'm going to fax it, or I'm going to send it to the Alzheimer's Society. It's a little form." And then they're going to reach out to you, so that you don't need to worry about remembering to reach out to them. You don't need to put that on yourself as well as another thing that you have to do. If you will give us permission, we'll do that for you. So anyone can fill out that form. You do not need to be a doctor. You don't need to be a nurse. You don't need to be in the medical field. You can be a community member. You can be a neighbor, and many neighbors call us. And I have it on my desktop. It's a little form. I'm talking to someone, and they disclose to me, "Hey, Kari, we've been friends for a long time. I have concerns about my mom." I'm like, "How do you feel? Will you give me permission to have someone from the society give you a call, and I just fill out that form and off I go. It's on our website. It's easy to do. You don't even need to fill out the form though. Honestly, just call us. But that's the First Link. It is the First Link program. We're trying to make it really easy for doctors and social workers and anyone out in the community to access us and connect us to that person early in the disease process so that we can support them earlier. You're gonna laugh, but my dog is asking to come in. He's like knocking at my door. Don't mind me. The golden retriever is coming. Hi. Wait, you're in the way, puppy. Sorry, my dog.
That's okay. Dogs are part of the family too, right? One of the things that you talked about is that I find quite interesting is this notion of getting support from your neighbors, from your community, having eyes out, if you will, for people who may be suffering from the disease and starting to wander or have slips and falls, which I understand is an increasingly common symptom of the disease as people lose their balance and mobility. Can you tell us a little bit about what a dementia-friendly community is, and how would a community go about getting that designation? I mean, is it like Neighborhood Watch where you have a program and a sign? What's a dementia-friendly community?
Yeah, so it's a little bit like Neighborhood Watch. I grew up with that. My mom had a Neighborhood Watch sign in her window. So the Dementia Friendly Communities Initiative is educating businesses. So what it means is if 75% of that business, of the employees within that business, are trained by the Alzheimer Society on simple techniques on how to communicate with someone, how to have a supportive interaction with someone, what the basics are of the disease process, and also to look at a little bit at the environment, some ways that you could make it a more dementia-friendly environment, like signage. You're in a Starbucks and you have a cup up showing grande and what grande means for the size of the cup. Simple little things that we would go in and we would support them to say, this is a dementia-friendly community space. And then it goes on our website as a dementia-friendly business. We're just getting that up and going. That's a little bit down the road. And then the other piece to it is there would be a decal on the front door showing that space is a dementia-friendly space. And then the caregiver and a person living with dementia would know that the staff have been educated and are aware. And I'll give you an example of where the benefit comes in from that. So we used to have a couple who were going to an exercise class, and she would join him in the wheelchair accessible change room, and the two of them would change, and she would assist him to change into his exercise gear. And then so all of a sudden you have two people coming out of one change room area, and they got a lot of looks from that. And it made the caregiver very uncomfortable that there was this judgment, and it included the staff in that judgment. And so after we learned of this, we approached the business ourselves and said, this is a scenario that's happening within your organization. Would you consider training your staff on how to manage that situation and how to educate other customers coming into that gym and other members? And so they did. And they had a decal, and they put a decal on that change room as well. And anyone who would approach them and say, what's going on? Like, are you allowing that? They had gotten permission from the couple to also say, he's in the early stages of dementia. He needs assistance with his care. And now they go regularly, and she feels empowered and comfortable, and it's a safe environment for them to attend their exercise classes.
So it sounds like Alzheimer's Society is doing a lot to raise awareness of the disease, but also to address the, I guess, ableism as well as ageism that you mentioned earlier, but the ableism that comes with not understanding that that there are people with the challenges of dementia, more than just memory loss, but behavioral concerns as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we want people to remain engaged and in their community, and we really want to reduce that social isolation, because that is a factor, that is a disease factor risk, is social isolation for seniors. So, making sure that people are socially engaged and interacting and stimulated that way is a way to help reduce developing the disease, like has shown it helps reduce dementia. Not to mention exercise and diet and using your brain. All of those things are help with prevention. And when you were mentioning earlier about what can we do when a person is first diagnosed, actually it's even going back further and saying exercise, like let's be preventative, exercise, the Mediterranean diet, making sure that you are stimulating your brain and reduce like smoking, alcohol, all of those things. Anything for a healthy heart and healthy body also apply for a healthy brain. You want to give your brain a healthy house. So, even talking just about prevention and wellness, as your podcast wants to promote this, it's really important for dementia as well.
So, as you address this issue of stigma that you talked about earlier, and how people are still embarrassed or reluctant to talk about whether a loved one has dementia or they themselves has the disease, as we address those issues, are you finding that people are coming to your programs earlier than before, or is it still a bit of a challenge to get them into programs and supports that help teach them how to live with the disease?
I don't know if people are coming more actively to our programs necessarily, but what I have seen in the last, say, 10 years is more people are talking about it. More people we're talking about dementia more. I pick up the newspaper. I remember like a few years ago picking up the newspaper and reading it one day and going, there are 5 articles in the newspaper that touch on dementia. And I was like, wow, this is just one newspaper day. And that, this is getting some attention. We see that people are identifying that there is a need to be talking about it and having that conversation. So I'll give you another example of where I think even the government is recognizing. So one of the MPPs, the MPP for Thornhill and Peel, so 2 MPPs have put forward Bill 121 for better dementia care in Ontario, and the bill was heard on Tuesday. And I was down at Queen's Park for it. And there's 2 pieces to it. And one is to ensure that the curriculum is addressing dementia in the PSW college curriculum. And then the other piece is asking the Minister of Health to evaluate the current state of dementia and to put a dementia framework in place for Ontario. So I don't know if we have more people. I guess we do. I think, yeah, I'm thinking of my director of programs right now, and she's behind me right now nodding her head like, yeah, of course, Kari, there's way more people coming to us. What are you talking about? We have more people coming to us, but I think the bigger thing is that more people are aware of it. 20 years ago, when I started at the Alzheimer Society, originally, people would bypass your wellness table, right? If you'd be at a wellness fair, people would see Alzheimer's disease and they'd be like, oh, I don't want to go near that. Like that, that's super scary. I'm not even going there. Now I find that people are, you know what, I have a neighbor, or I want to find out how to prevent it, or I'm seeing the signs in my mom. Can you give me more information? And we are a busy table where before we were a pretty quiet table. So I think the conversation is happening more.
Well, certainly, if we're looking at statistics that suggest that in 10 years we're going to see a 50% increase, that's scary.
It is scary. It is scary.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, what's happening in the, we talked about prevention. What about a cure for Alzheimer's?
So there are two medications that are being looked at right now, lecanemab, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. I wish I had more information, but we do have two medications that are being looked at right now with Health Canada for approval. They've been approved down in the States. What it does is it slows it doesn't necessarily, it plateaus. So the earlier in the disease process it is identified, the earlier you get on the medications, the better off you are. That's it in a synopsis. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. I don't really get into about it. But for the first time ever, there is hope that there are medications out there. And one of the things that the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario is lobbying to the government is we need to get ready. Our system needs to get ready for these medications because we need to have that diagnosis early, and the earlier the better. And we're not ready for that.
Yeah.
They're entering the healthcare system when the signs have already been long there. And if we catch someone early and get them on these medications that are coming, hopefully in the next year or two, we'll be able to help people significantly.
Well, just looking at the cost to the healthcare system, to the economy of that many people with the disease is astronomical. And certainly, whatever can be done to bend the curve, I think is absolutely essential and something that we should be working towards. I know the federal government had developed a dementia strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about that or where that's going?
Yeah. So one of the things, well, you know what? I don't get really high up into the Canadian, I'll be honest, I don't get up into the Canadian politics and everything too much, but they have two studies out on the landmark study from the Alzheimer Society of Canada, and that the dementia strategy from the federal government, one of the things that they mandated or that they were looking at was making sure that research across Canada is being looked at. So making sure that that's coordinated. Our research is talking to each other. And then looking at, and I don't know where they're at with that, around the standard of care.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how somebody can reach you if they have a request for information or that they have a neighbor or loved one, a loved one that they think may need some help. How might they reach you?
Well, you can just call us. You can Google the Alzheimer Society. So to find your local Alzheimer Society, you can go on the Alzheimer Society of Ontario website. Just Google Alzheimer Society Ontario, and it'll ask you your location on the homepage. Just put in your location. So if you are in Owen Sound, you would just type in Owen Sound, and it will take you to all the contact information, the address, the phone number, the website, and the email address, and then you can just reach out to them directly, and you'll get a live person. If you call Monday to Friday 9 to 5, it's live people who answer the phone. So we're pretty easy to access.
Yeah. Can you tell me how long some of your clients have been with you in the programs?
So the disease projection is long. So we've had clients that have had a connection to us for 10 years. We have clients, so most of the time it's the caregiver who is our actual client, and we'll have caregivers who have had more than one person in their family that we have supported them through. So, it can be years. it can be years. And so what happens too is that it kind of ebbs and flows. They need us for a while, then they stabilize, and then they say, it's okay, you don't need to call us for a little while. We'll call you, and then something will happen and something will change, and they'll need some support, or they'll need some guidance on where to go to get some services. And we'll connect people to the appropriate services like chats. And if you need snow removal or you need Meals on Wheels, we will send you down the hall to chats and say, here's the services that you need. We don't provide them, but we know who does, and we will send you down the hall, literally, to chats. And or the other thing too is we have locations across the region.
Mhm.
In York region, all the way from Keswick down to Vaughan and Richmond Hill, and Stouffville, Aurora. So we're accessible in as much as we can be. We can always. We're only a phone call away. And another example that Andrea, our director of care, was giving me the other day about our partnership with Chats even is that Chats and the Alzheimer Society, as you mentioned, we are housed in the same building, and we have a hallway we access to each other. And we've had a couple where one of the couple didn't have dementia and went to the Chats day program.
Mhm.
And then the other spouse had dementia and came to our day program. And so they came together on the YRT, each got dropped off at the appropriate door. They came in for their program, got back on the YRT together, and went home. And so those are the kind of partnerships that we're developing and have across the region to support our community.
Yeah, and keeping that couple at home where they want to be.
That couple at home and well supported and reducing their social isolation.
Yes, yeah, so important, so important. So, is there anything else? And we've only got a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us or share with the people listening today?
I would need to reach out, connect. Don't worry about having your power taken away from you. If anything, what we would be doing is helping you to maintain that control and to remain in the community by ensuring that you have the tools and the resilience that you need and the circle of care around you to ensure that if you want to remain at home, that we're supporting you to remain at home for as long as possible, if that's the goal. And if it's not and you need something else, we work with the family to say, what is your goal? How do you want to accomplish it? How can we support you to do that? I think the takeaway is that reaching out to services in your community helps you to stay at home. It doesn't hinder you from staying at home. It helps you remain autonomous and allow you to make your own decisions versus taking that away from you, which I think is a great fear.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I know we share the objective of providing the kind of support that helps people to stay in their own homes and stay in their communities as long as possible. And, I was talking to somebody who has a loved one that was recently diagnosed with dementia. And already they were thinking, do we need to get on a list for long-term care, for a long-term care institution? And, I said, there are lots of services available that, don't require you to do that. Plus it would be a long wait list if that's the way things were working. So
yeah.
Really great what you're doing, Kari Quinn-Humphrey, CEO of Alzheimer's Society of York Region. And as Kari mentioned, you can Google Alzheimer's Society and it will help you connect to your local organization to find services available in your community. Recommend you start sooner rather than later, as Kari said, to take advantage of the programs and services and the prevention initiatives that are available to help not only cope with the disease, but ensure that the journey is one that is manageable, particularly from the family caregiver's perspective. So, Kari, thank you so much for being on our program. Hope you had a great time.
Yes.
And I certainly did, and I learned some more things. So that's always a great benefit to me as well as to the people listening to the program. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We'll see you down the hall.
See you down the hall.